Okay. First, I was talking to this guy on the phone, and I was at work, and he was just like, "Oh, play words with friends or something like that. Or play charades. I'm sorry, play charades because I'm talking to him through Facebook." And he's like, "Oh, let's play," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then he's like, "Go." And I was like, "I actually don't know how to play, so like, explain it to me." So he's trying to explain it to me. He was just like, "Don't you see the letters there? Just try to put something there." And it could have just been maybe he didn't have the patience, or I just didn't really have like any clue, or the fact that I was coming to the game with like not having um, any clue. Then that's maybe kind of like what made it difficult for him to even try to explain. Maybe it was his impatience. I don't know, or his shock. It could have been his shock because I am familiar with the name of the game. I've heard it. I've heard it, comedians talk about it when I was watching some stand up. I've heard people talk about it in conversations, but I actually have not played it. Um, I just haven't played it, and so um, I just was in that situation where he was trying to play something with me, and I could not play with him because I just wasn't familiar with how to play it. And then again today, where there's a coworker who was talking about something, about a comment that I made last week. Not last week. It had to be over 2 weeks ago. I didn't go to work last week. Over 2 weeks ago, and I was just saying, hey, if your girlfriend would flirt as much as you would today, that you are with the coworkers on this floor, then would she be okay with it? Would you be okay with it if you saw her doing what you're doing? And she was like, oh, no, I would murder her. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then that would mean that you do know that there's a limit between you guys and you're crossing it. And she was just like, don't be trying to be bothered by what I'm doing. And she was just like, I'm just talking. And this is the lady, she's flirting with someone that's in the cubicle behind me. And I was observing that. But today, um, the one of the second reasons why I feel like I'm just not that quick in getting things is because this same coworker who works on a different floor came upstairs, and she was saying, no, Nigerians think that you should just date one person and that's the only person you can talk to ever in your life. And I was just like, no, I don't necessarily think that. And yes, I do identify as Nigerian American because I was born here, but I don't. I was just saying, and I was trying to reiterate what I had already said 2 weeks ago, and what she had already agreed on 2 weeks ago. And so I didn't want, any fogginess in of her mind to then feel like to be stuffed in my mouth. No, I already said something 2 weeks ago, and that's what you agreed on. She was just like, no, and her voice got raised. And I do believe that sometimes in these particular settings, when other people are talking, when one or two people are talking at a raised level, then it does, because we're in a cubicle style office. And so when you are talking at a certain level, then if it is the culture, if it's allowed, then yes, it is very easy for other people to get involved in the conversation. And so if you're not talking at a low level, then it's perceived that this is a general conversation. So other people started picking up and say, oh, well, what's flirting? No, she was hitting on her. She's not flirting. And then I just had to surrender because I do think that those terms were interchangeable. But because this girl raised her voice, I feel like I was slow to pick up on the fact that she was feeling triggered. It could have been because she felt like she was being judged, and she didn't pick up on the fact that I was just making an observation, and I was saying it jokingly, not trying to condemn her, but saying, "Oh, look like you over here chit chatting with old girl over here, but you show me the girl on your phone. Why you over here?" Da, da, da. And so, since I said it in that style, and the way that she received it 2 weeks ago, I the way that this girl was raising her voice, like angrily, and changed her facial expression, I was like, oh, I wanted to just go back just 5 seconds before to where I could say, well, it doesn't matter. That's just how couples, couples decide, what their boundaries are, not outsiders. I wanted to like, hey, whoa, we didn't need to get to where like you're taking offense. But because I had made the comment and other people threw their comments in, it then took a turn to where she was being chastised, and she just that went south. It went south, and so I wish I was quicker to try and navigate that, but the stepping in of other coworkers, I could have had foreknowledge and just could have known that, hey, this girl's ignorant. This guy's he's not just young, he hasn't dated anyone, and so his contributions are going to be based off of nothing, nothing substantial. And the other woman who was 71, just the ages are just all over in an office. You know what I mean? It could just really random group of people. So her is not going to be the same as mine. And so that went south. And I just really wish that I would have just not fell into that, or just would have laughed, or just really had some self-control, because I also do sound as though I'm blaming myself for the contributions of other people and the actions and behaviors of other people. But in the early onset, now I know that when someone wants to talk about something, you just never know. You just really never know. When there's so many variables, you just never know, But so it's such a gamble. But it is safer to just kind of check out. Just like in relationships in the office have so many more heads, and so you can't control everything. So sometimes it is best to pick your battles when you're in relationships, but also pick your conversations. Sometimes just don't go all the way. So when I say don't go all the way, don't be invested in people that are just walking by, people that aren't even on your floor. Maybe just don't be invested with people that are, for one, talking 5 feet away. You can have conversations with someone that is 5 feet away, but also because of the distance, it's inviting. And so keep allow someone to talk to you, but as far as like talking back and keeping a conversation going, keep it a yes and no, a head and nod. And if there's any way I can check out, I think that's the only thing I can contribute moving forward, because it went south. It went negative toward her, and instantly she was like, oh, look what you did. And because I had initiated that, she had brought it back up, but then I confirmed it. She just threw it over to me, and that was that's another way to throw not another way to throw somebody under the bus, but it is another way to just blame someone. Oh, you did this. So that's all that was. But another thing that I just feel like is interesting about myself, that could be categorized as just slow. Did I already say that I felt like my friends are just 10 years younger, or like 5 years to 10 years older? Interesting. I just think that that's really interesting. I just think it's interesting, and I don't want to just leave out the older ones. I'm trying to look for people that are just right at my age, right at, she's 52. That's 12. That's 11. That's 13 years older. Um, I don't want to leave them out because it just seems like I'm just forcing myself to just look in one direction of my whole, and just exclude part of like my dynamic, my whole existence. But um no, it just seems like uh a lot of times I do gravitate toward younger people, and I feel like that may be an indication of just where I am mentally. I do have a lot of episodes where there's just stuff I don't get, stuff that goes over my head. And I think it's just not just, I think being slow, yes, I do think it's on a spectrum, just like intelligence is on a spectrum. And just like intelligence is when I say multifaceted, there's different forms of intelligence. Whether or not some people choose to accept that or not, no, you're just intellectually smart, or some that you're just um, smart in this area or whichever. And I agree, only because I feel like I'm included in that. I'm included in that. Like, I may not get like high IQ or this or that, but there's just some areas where, and that just may be a synonym for skill. But just like intelligence, I think that there's slowness or stupidity or dunceness or whichever may have a spectrum, and or does have a spectrum. And on that spectrum, there's just where you can't learn, you can't grow, and there's on the other end of the spectrum, there's where you have signs and capabilities of being able to grasp some knowledge. You may not be able to retain it, you forget it easily, whichever. But however the brain works. But I either have moments of slowness, or I'm just checked out. And how do I differentiate between that? How do I differentiate between, okay, no, there's just some stuff I just don't really just begin. I'm just not that. Even when I watch videos on YouTube, I do have to slow the video down. Anytime I'm trying to, not when I'm watching the people's videos, I can grasp their material. When I'm watching comedy videos, I watch a lot of comedy videos. I watch a lot of lifestyle, when people are just giving some very deep introspective piece of information about relationships, or about men are talking about what a narcissist is. Like, I watch videos like that. And I also watch videos on what you should, a nice side hustle gig. Those I watch fine. But let me be trying to listen to an audio book on YouTube, listen to a someone trying to teach something from beginning to end. I was trying to learn insurance, and I was like, all right, let's listen. Why do people buy insurance? What are the different types and things like that? I had to slow it down. Not only did I have to slow the video down, I listened to all the videos, and I had to slow it down, but I also had to play it back. And that was just an indication of processing, trying to process the information. The difference between that and just trying to watch any other video is that I'm actually trying to retain this information. I would love to be able to be asked or questioned about it, and then recite the correct, accurate information. And so this is why I was trying to slow it down, and that's how it gets in. I can process better when it comes slower. And so I think that's just an indication. But I don't think that those exclusive moments, exclusive events then become my identity. But I think if there were more events that I had to process my training at work or getting to know, oh my God, I invited someone to church, and her name is Chris. So I invited Chris to work to my church, and she's like, I haven't actually been to church in a while, and I was like, okay, well, come to my church if you don't mind. My church gives away Bibles. It'll be the same Bible I brought to you that day I visited you. She was like, oh, that Bible's the print is too small, but I can still come. So she came, and I'm trying to introduce her to 3 other Black women that I always smile at, and we exchange hugs, and we're just like, hey, how's your week? And I'm like, hey, this is Chris. And they're like, oh, hi. On my way to meet someone else, another lady was like, hey, how are you? And I don't remember her name, but let's say it's Isabella. She said, hi, how are you? I'm Isabella. I say, hi, how are you? I say my name, and then I introduce Chris. And I was just like, I invited Chris. This is her first day here, but I've been attending this church for what would be 2 years in December. And so I was just like, Elizabeth, right? She said, Isabella. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And she was like, no problem. And she was just like, okay, what church did you attend before? I told her the church down the street. And she's like, oh, that's a huge church. They have a lot of resources. And I was just like, this is why sometimes I still, before I completely transitioned here and just became a member of this church, that other church that has a lot of resources, I still attended some of their ministries. And I was just like, Alyssa, right? And she was just like, Isabella. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, well, Chris and I used to work together, but now hopefully she'll actually keep coming to this church. So now I've introduced her to 3 other women. Now we know you, Aroname. And she was like, Aroname, Isabella. And I was like, and I just was like, wow. She's like, that's okay. She patted me on my shoulder, and that's just sad. So I think there were 4 instances in that 1 minute, 1 minute conversation that so that also, like, I have excuses for every reasoning that I brought up, every reasoning to support that I'm slow. There's also another perspective. There's also another way that you can look at it and say, oh, well, you just process slow. Oh, well, you actually just not good with names. Oh, well, you actually are just not familiar with playing online games. Or you may not be quick on observing social cues, or you should have been looking directly at this woman and not trying to do your work, and looking at this woman who was getting attacked by people who didn't even hear the beginning of your conversation. So I probably am not slow at all, but there are instances that are just keep coming up that are just making me feel like I'm inadequate, but to the glory of God. I'm just telling you, if there's anything that's going to humble you, it's going to be operating with people and with God. Like just cooperating, just working, just exchanging with humans. I do not know how people don't feel inadequate. I think that there's such a fullness and sense of yourself, even on your eyes and on your ears when you're talking to people, when you're if you have the ability to listen, that keeps you from being humbled. It is so easy to like meet people, whether in present or just even on paper. You can make a misspelling or whichever. But whenever we are exchanging with people, it is very easy for us to be humbled because of our mistakes, because of our errors, because of things we didn't catch right off the bat. But I'm so thankful for these opportunities that have humbled me and allowed me to just lean on God. This then takes me back to just keeping myself open-minded, keeping myself dependent on God and at his leg like a little child holding on to their mother. All these experiences that I have Someone could have made me feel like, wow, you're what an idiot, what a moron. But um I took it upon myself. I can do that by myself. I do not, me particularly, I do not need anyone to berate me. It's almost as though I like it. Sometimes I put myself in those situations. This is just my perspective. Sometimes I put myself in certain situations that allow me to then have an anxiety or to beat myself up because of the end result of my actions, my behaviors, or my lack thereof. Well, all the incidents that I brought up in this video are minuscule as well, but to have them repeatedly, to have them close together in a short period of time can have one think, if you have any kind of self-awareness, or you just take any kind of self-review, then yes, that this could cause someone to like really question their capabilities, really question their intelligence. But whether you're an idiot, moron, or an intelligent person, um, just operating in life with people, or even by yourself, like losing your keys or not knowing where you parked, really can um, having a chain of events that have you questioning your behaviors, your thoughts, your choices, your words, your intentions. What was, oh my god, um all it did was to bring make me be even more grateful that I do have God. I have nothing else superior. I think mathematicians, medical doctors, aeronautical scientists, anesthesia, I just people that are poets, people that are finding new inventions and creations and things like that, naming new species, or what, naming new things in the sea. I don't know, finding the things out in the galaxy that could be helpful to the humans, to us here. I don't know. They have pondered upon something that is great and grand, but there isn't anything more superior on this earth in existence than to have the knowledge of God. And even if we continue to make mistake after mistake, failure after failure, you may be a failure on in life, but these are the exact people that Yahweh used to do magnificent things, to have water split into two, to have them walk in on top of water and defy science, as long as they looked at Jesus himself, to be able to speak to dry bones. These are not stories, these are actual accounts. But because we depend on our intelligence so much, that we don't allow for a supernatural power to then even manifest. We want to take control, we want to have that knowledge, but sometimes it is the dunce of man that allows the power of Yahweh to exist. I am so thankful for him, and I'm gonna use this opportunity to say, read your scripture, become familiar with his identity in the book of John. I just read something, I think it was Romans 8, that just opened my eyes and helped me to understand the difference between living in the spirit and living in the flesh. So start there, then head over to John 9, to John, the entire book of John in the gospel, not first, second, or third. I suggest you start in the gospel. But once we have this assurance that God is in us, and that we depend on him, having a chain of events that just prove, that are substantial, that we weren't thinking initially, we weren't thinking intentionally, we weren't thinking or behaving the best in the past just 5 seconds ago. Well, at least we have God. I have the ability to be around the most intelligent, the most skilled, and just still feel like I have something of value. And that is my salvation. And I pray that you have the same as well. Bye.